Hello and welcome to the Real World Podcast. My name's Cameron. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Real World YouTube channel. Be sure to give us a like, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell to get notifications of all our videos here at the Real World. If you're a movie fan like I am, you'll definitely get a lot out of the channel. I review all these Blu-rays behind me. I talk about all the new movies coming out, series on streaming, things like that. Today we're talking all about Amy Adams, one of our favorite actresses. We're going to rank our top 5 Amy Adams movies, and we're going to review the new movie Disenchanted, which is now on Disney Plus. Joining me in this endeavor is Bert. How you doing, man?
Hey, terrific. How's it going?
Doing well on this Thanksgiving weekend. I'm sure we're full and we're still kind of a little tired, but we're going to jump into this new episode here. So hope you guys enjoy it. All right, well, before we jump into all the Amy Adams talk, discussion about her films, we're going to talk about some movie news that dropped this week. There was really one big piece of news that dropped right after we did our podcast last week, that I wanted to discuss, which was Bob Iger has returned to Disney as the CEO. He
Hmm.
was the Disney CEO formerly. He was replaced by Bob Chapek, and Bob Chapek was fired by the Disney board last Saturday, and so they got
Wow,
rid of
why?
him. Yeah, he a lot of reasons. He really hasn't done a great job from a lot of people's perspective. Fans are a little bit up in
Really?
arms with some of the decisions he's made, some of the things he's said. People just
Oh,
aren't really on board with a lot of the decisions he was making. So
yeah.
they decided
Gotcha.
to get rid of him and go
Wow.
back to Bob Iger, who announced his retirement 2 years ago. And so they decided to go back with, as I call him, Uncle Bob, and he's a lot more personable guy. He's a lot more
Mm-hmm.
into the kind of creative side. He's less a businessman. I think Chapek kind of just rubbed people the wrong way. The things he would say, he wasn't very elegant in the way he would talk about things. He was a lot more business minded and stuff like that.
Oh,
So
okay.
even employees have talked about how he wasn't the best choice for them to go with. So
Hmm.
they're back to Bob Iger. Hopefully this means some positive changes for the studio. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens. Bob
Yeah.
Iger, I mean, he ushered in a whole new era of Disney. I mean, he's responsible for the Pixar acquisition,
Oh,
Marvel acquisition,
that was a good
Lucasfilm.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, all these huge IPs that they now control are all that happened under him. So he's a really smart guy, made a lot of good decisions. Again, he's a little more creative and kind of he likes the storytelling aspect. He likes what
Hmm.
Walt did starting the company. And
Yeah.
so I think he's really a good pick, obviously, to go back to. He's only signed a 2-year contract though, so we'll have to wait and see what kind of moves he makes before he leaves again in a couple years.
Yeah. Presumably Disney was still making money in the last 2 years, but I guess that's not the end all be all at
Exactly.
Disney.
It's more about the brand and their
Yeah.
the kind of integrity of the brand. I think that was hurt
Gotcha.
more. That like families kind of started to veer away from them. They started making some decisions in regards to storytelling and things that pushing
Yeah.
certain agendas and things like that people
Yep.
just weren't
I
really
gotcha.
into. So
Right.
I think it's a good move, and I think it's one that again we'll just have to kind of wait and see the ramifications of it in the next couple of years.
Right.
All right, so other bits of news I wanted to talk about, some box office stuff. We don't usually talk box office here, but it's obviously a huge part of the filmmaking industry, and so I thought it'd be cool to kind of just take a quick look at kind of some of the biggest movies of the year. Starting with this past weekend, though. Thanksgiving weekend's always a huge weekend for movies. This one was a little more lackluster than it typically is.
Hmm.
Number one spot was held onto by Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, pulled in
Hmm.
45 million to add to its global total of 367 million. So it's a pretty big hit again for Marvel there. The most disappointing one was the number two spot. Strange World is the new Disney animated film. It is the worst Disney Thanksgiving opening in decades. Only 11 million opening weekend over the 5 day
Wow.
total, only 18. So huge
Yeah.
disappointment there for Disney.
Wow.
It's the first ever B cinema score rating also, which is what the audience members are giving this movie.
Okay.
In 31
Huh.
years. So in 31 years, they have not had a B rating for any of their animated films. And
Wow.
so very low rating, very low box office. And so not sure what happened there. It's one of these things that it didn't have a lot of competition. I
Right.
didn't see it marketed very well.
Yeah, I didn't see
Um,
many ads for it, that's for sure.
yeah, so
Any.
yeah, right, exactly. So yeah, very disappointing box office there for
Hmm.
Disney. At the number three spot, we had the new Korean War film Devotion. This
Hmm.
is about the pilots during the Korean War. It pulled in 6 million, which is pretty good for a pretty small movie. Um, Number four, The Menu. Have you heard of this? This looks interesting.
No.
It's
No.
got Rafe Fiennes. He's like a chef that
Hmm.
kind of like lures all these people to this like exclusive event, and some weird stuff starts happening. The trailer, I didn't really want to watch the trailer too much because it was one of those kind of mystery things, but it looks really interesting.
Yeah,
It's got
yeah.
Nicholas Hoult. It's got Anya
Oh yeah.
Taylor-Joy
Okay.
in it as well. So that one looks interesting. I'm curious to check that one out. That one pulled in 5.2 million at the
Hmm.
number four spot. And then in at number five, still doing really well, is Black Adam. This is the new
Oh,
movie starring The Rock, pulled in 3.3 million, global total of 370 million. So it's doing
okay.
pretty well. So that is our top five for the Thanksgiving weekend this weekend. Wanted to pull back a little bit and go domestic. So the domestic box office for the entire year of 2022, we're
Mm,
winding down here, coming up on December here. So
right.
wanted to look at kind of the biggest movies of the year so far. And of course, Avatar is still coming out, so I'm sure that might change the whole discussion. We'll have to wait and see. But in at number five, I'll start with the number five is the Batman. The Batman as
All right.
domestically pulled in 369 million, global total of 770 million. So pretty big hit there for Warner Brothers. Obviously, they've already announced the sequel is coming in a couple years, so be on the lookout for that. And at
That's the
number,
sequel with Henry Cavill.
I don't know. I don't know. They haven't said if they're going to cross over yet. I
Oh, oh,
think that Matt Reeves is
okay.
going to keep his universe separate. I get the
Okay.
feeling that he
I'm
will.
kind of
His is,
hoping.
yeah, it's very grounded, and I'd
Yeah.
rather see Cavill with Affleck again. So
Me too,
uh,
and Snyder. Yeah.
yeah, exactly, absolutely, absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, so the Batman is in at number five. At number four, both domestically and globally as well, is Minions: The Rise of Gru. This
Really?
is the Despicable Me spinoff, which is
Mm-hmm.
this one I guess is an origin story, so it's a prequel to the whole
Okay.
thing, and yeah, that one's done really well. 369 domestic, 937 million globally.
Wow.
So yeah,
A lot
almost
of
a
foreign
billion.
appeal.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. It's one of those that has that mass kind of appeal to older and
Right.
younger, families can go see it together, that kind
I'm
of
not
thing.
a huge Minions fan though.
I haven't seen any of them. I
Yeah.
think I've
I
seen
mean,
the
they're
first two Despicable Me movies, and that's
yeah.
it.
Yeah, I think I saw the first one and it was just okay.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Yeah. So yeah, Minions in at number four there, and then at the number three spot, domestically is Jurassic World Dominion with
Mm,
376 million. Globally, the number three spot is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which is in the
mm,
number two spot domestically.
gotcha.
A total for Doctor Strange is 955 million.
Wow.
The
Yeah.
global total for Jurassic World Dominion is 1.001 billion.
Okay.
So that is one of our billion-dollar hits this year. And of course, in at number one is another billion-dollar film, Top Gun Maverick.
Right, of course.
1.486 billion. Incredible.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, just came out of nowhere. I mean, we had been waiting for that movie for so long that I thought, is this going to be a bomb? I don't know. Are they trying to hide it? What, like, of course it was the
Exactly.
COVID and all that, but
Yeah,
still, it
yeah.
felt kind of like maybe they are kind of scared to release it because they don't know
Oh
how
yeah.
good it is. Yeah.
Right, right. Yeah.
But
And by the way, with I think we talked about Tom Cruise's back end on that. I don't do we know what the percentage is? Because if it's 10%, I mean he's got to be one of the wealthiest actors around currently.
Yeah, I don't know what the exact percentage is. I should have looked that up. I didn't
Yeah.
think about that, but
It may not be disclosed. I don't know, but
yeah, he might not have revealed it. But
it's not
yeah,
1%, so
right.
but
Even
either
if
way,
it's five, it's a lot of
it's
money.
huge payday.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. So yeah, he's got a big hit on his hands and yeah, curious to see what he does next. Obviously with Mission Impossible coming out next year. Be curious to see how well that does. That's a pretty big
Part one, right?
franchise. What's that?
Isn't it a two-parter, the next mission?
That's right. Yeah, Dead Reckoning
Yeah.
is a part one, and then part two comes out the following year, and it's supposed to wrap up the whole franchise. So we'll have to
Oh,
see what they end up doing there. I'm really
well,
excited about that one.
yeah, considering the last one, I mean,
Yeah,
Fallout, it was like basically the best action movie I've ever seen, pretty
yeah,
much. It was so good.
exactly, totally.
In big part to Henry Cavill as well, but that
Yes,
was just
yes.
tremendous.
It was. Yeah, really excited to see how they wrap that whole thing up. Those have all been really fun movies to watch over the last couple decades they've been going on now. So,
Yeah.
yep. So that's our box office report. Wanted to kind of dive into that before the year ends and kind of see how things stack up once we get through December. Like I said, with that Avatar release, we were not sure what that can do. I heard some reports that James Cameron says it has to make, some ridiculous amount of money, like $500 million to just break even. So it's like a huge budget on it that is just kind of astronomical. But
There's tons
yeah,
riding on it because it's not just two. They've already filmed three and part of four.
yeah,
And so what do you do if the second one bombs?
yeah. He said he
But
is
it won't. I don't
prepared
think it
to.
will.
I don't think it will either. But yeah, he has talked about how if this one really bombs, he is prepared to wrap it up in part three, basically include some footage from the
Oh,
fourth one and kind of wrap it all up in one movie, I guess a 4 hour film, maybe. I don't know.
gotcha.
So we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, that comes out pretty
Yeah.
soon. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, me too.
All right, moving on with a couple things I just wanted to touch on. I'm going to be doing some reviews on the channel this week of the new series Andor, which just wrapped up. It
Mm.
had its finale last Wednesday, the new Star Wars series. This is a really cool, dark, gritty kind of spy series that even people who
Mm.
aren't into Star Wars are really loving. So I highly recommend it. It gets kind of into the politics of the galaxy and just things that we haven't really been able to dive deep into in the movies. So
Yeah.
it's just very well written. Tony Gilroy wrote it. He's been a part of the Bourne franchise for a long time, and he was a great
Oh,
pick to kind of tell this kind of very personal story, but it's kind of an ensemble kind of cast. We get, the inner workings of how the Empire works and the
oh,
rebellion. And
okay.
it's just really well done. So a lot of it's shot on location, beautiful scenery, really well
Hmm.
shot. The acting performances are phenomenal. So highly recommend it to anyone who hasn't checked it out. They're now shooting season two. So hopefully that'll be
Okay.
released either next year or the year after. And it's going to lead directly into Rogue One. So it'll be kind of
Oh,
a
okay.
connective thing. We'll get to kind of see his whole journey leading into Rogue One, which is going to be fun. It makes me like that movie even more. It's not my favorite Star Wars movie, and the
Right.
series has done a lot to make me want to go back and watch it. And it
Yeah.
makes me like his character even more. So
Sure.
yeah, definitely recommend Andor. It's a 12 episode series, so the longest series they've done on Disney Plus, and
Hmm.
every episode is well worth watching. The other thing that dropped was the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special. This was
Right.
tons of fun. A lot of great
Good.
music, as is expected from the Guardians films. They all have great soundtracks. It's funny, it's heartwarming. It's basically everything you could want from a Christmas special, and
Good.
does
Good.
it in James Gunn's very particular style with these very quirky characters. And so yeah, it's a lot of fun. I definitely recommend that one as well. It just arrived on Friday. There's actually quite a bit of character development in there. Some
Hmm.
reveals happen that I found were interesting. So it wasn't just kind of one of these throwaway things. It really actually had
Yeah.
meaning for the characters and story moving forward into volume three, which is coming out in May. So
Right.
it
Right.
got me even more excited for that. So definitely check that out if you get a chance.
Good. I'm glad it didn't disappoint after the trailer, which looked really good.
Yeah, exactly. It definitely lived up to the trailer big time. Yeah.
Good.
All right. A couple more things here. We wanted to talk about a trailer that dropped. My father-in-law actually sent this to me. It's called The Old Way. This is a new Western film set to debut soon, and it stars Nicolas Cage. So Nicolas Cage in a Western. I don't think he's ever done one before that I can remember.
He's got so
Um,
many B movies though that it's
That's
hard to
true.
say. There could be one
Yeah,
out
he may
there.
have snuck one in there somewhere, but this is the first one I've heard of at least. So, yeah, I'm curious about this. I thought the trailer was pretty solid. As most trailers do, I thought it gave away maybe a little too much, but it definitely gave us, kind of the kind of story we're getting, which reminded me a lot of Unforgiven. I got a lot of Unforgiven vibes from it,
Mhm.
and a little bit of True Grit as well, because
Ah,
it's basically him and his daughter. So he's got this
yeah,
young girl
yeah.
with him that he's kind of training and how to be kind of a gunfighter, a survivor in
Hmm.
the Old West. And so he's
Right.
obviously got this past, that kind of catches up with him. So it reminded me of all those kind of ideas. It's probably not going to be as good as either of those movies. Those are both like some of my favorite movies ever. So, but look, I mean, like we've said before, I mean, Nick Cage, he always gives it his all. He never
True.
phones it in. So, just for him alone, yeah, I would be willing to check it out.
Yeah, and I'm not a big Western fan, but I've
Right.
seen some good ones. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, but I do like Nicolas Cage a lot. But he does make a lot of. He's more about quantity and not his acting per se, but just I mean, he doesn't just wait for those like the big director and the movies that he knows are going to land. He'll take
Right.
like a lot of different projects, and you can't really blame him.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
And I actually, when I was watching this trailer, I kind of reminded me of Kick Ass a little bit because
Oh,
he's
sure.
got his
Yeah.
daughter in that film, and
Right.
then
Right.
she also starts uh kicking butt and whatever
Right.
else. So
Sure.
reminded me a little bit of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. 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 That's
yeah,
true.
but it could be good. I mean, I'd give it a shot, especially if someone saw it and said that's actually pretty good. I definitely
Right.
then probably would watch it.
Yeah. Wait and see what the critics say on it. See what the kind of consensus is, and maybe
Yeah,
check it out. I don't know if I'm guessing it'll be available on streaming somewhere, but
right.
yeah, I'm definitely curious about it.
Yeah.
Great. All right. All right. One more thing before we leave our kind of movie news segment here. We wanted to talk about a little bit of movie history. So this week, 80 years ago, the classic Casablanca was released into theaters. And so
Oh.
I wanted to just talk a little bit about this movie that I'm a huge fan of, released November 26, 1942. The original title was Everybody Comes to Rick's. Rick's is the kind of
Mm.
hangout place, kind of the central location of the film, the place that Humphrey Bogart owns, that all these kind of characters come in and out of. So it's a kind of classic romantic film, but it also has this really cool kind of intrigue to it because the backdrop is World War II. So we're in
Mm.
this, very vital location in the middle of World War II, where all these kind of refugees were coming in and out of Casablanca and Morocco. So it has,
So it wasn't
just
that much after World War II then at that point when it
well,
came
it was,
out.
yeah, right in the middle of World War II,
Oh, right in the
42.
middle of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, the
So
war ended
okay.
in
Yeah.
45. So
Oh,
it's
right.
right there
Okay.
in the
Yeah.
middle.
Wow.
And yeah, so it was a very kind of impactful film at the time, had
Yeah.
a lot of
Yeah.
meaning for a lot of people. And so it's really one of those important kind of historical films as well. It's not a true story, but it's set in
Mm,
real history, basically. So
gotcha.
it's directed by Michael Curtiz. He did a lot of great films, classic Adventures of Robin Hood, other movies that he's really really great director. So he directed this. Humphrey Bogart, of course, stars alongside Ingrid Bergman, European actress, as well as Paul Henreid. Claude Rains is another big name. Peter Lorre, a lot of people would recognize him. Madeline LeBeau, Sidney Greenstreet, Dooley Wilson. So just a great cast. It has a great score by Max Steiner, who I mentioned
Oh,
briefly on
sure.
our Scores podcast as well. He's done a lot of good ones. Arthur Edison did the cinematography, and it's very well done, all shot in black and white. Um, it won the Oscars for Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Screenplay. It was also nominated for Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor, Best Cinematography, Best Editing, and Best Score. So definitely racked up at the Oscars. A lot of awards won, a lot of nominations. And so it's definitely one to check out if you haven't. It is now streaming on HBO Max. So if you're a subscriber to HBO Max, who I think still might have a deal going on where they have $1.99 a month for 3 months or something like that. They had a Black Friday deal on their streaming service. I think that might still be going on. So Yeah, just wanted to mention that kind of a new segment here. This week in movie history, I noticed that come up on my Twitter feed, and I thought it'd be a good chance to talk about it right now.
Yeah.
All right, folks. Well, that's it for our movie news segment. We wanted to jump in now to Amy Adams, the subject of our podcast here today. She is my personal favorite actress of all time. I think she's
Oh.
wonderful in every role she's taken on. I just fully believe her. She's fully committed
Hmm.
as an actress, and she's very multi-talented too, which we'll get into as we get into each of these movies. But we decided to do a podcast about her because Disenchanted is now on Netflix, a sequel to Enchanted. 15 years in the making. So yeah, you can watch that right now on Disney Plus. We'll give our brief review of that in just a moment, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about her background. She's a 48-year-old actress, originally born in Italy, actually, to American parents. Her mother, Catherine, her father, Richard. She was born in Italy because her father was stationed there while he was with the U.S. Army. And she grew up with four brothers and two sisters, so a very big, loud household. Her family ended up settling in Colorado after her father retired from the army, and he became a nightclub singer. He would sing at local nightclubs and restaurants, and her mother was a semi-professional bodybuilder. So quite
Really?
a quite an eclectic group there. And she was raised Mormon, eventually left after her parents were divorced. And
Oh.
so that was kind of her upbringing. Dance was her passion in life until musical theater took over as she became a teenager. And so, she's played small roles in, mid to low budget films until Steven Spielberg cast her in Catch Me If You Can, which we talked about a little bit last week on the Spielberg podcast. So that was her
Hmm.
first kind of big break, was in that movie. Plays a great role there. And like I said, she's just totally believable in every role. She's taken on so many different types of roles. She's been able to show so much range, I feel like, in her career. Such a wide variety of different parts that she's played. So yeah, I always buy into it, no matter what role she's playing. She's able to convey, emotion very naturally, and she's been nominated at this point for 6 Academy Awards, as well as
Wow.
numerous other, yeah, numerous other awards as well. So that's a little bit about Amy Adams. And did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, no, except well, I'll be talking about accents later, so it's
Oh,
interesting that
sure.
she grew up in Colorado.
Yeah.
So I'll keep that in mind, but
Okay.
we'll revisit that in a little bit.
Great, great, awesome. Well, before we jump into our top 5 favorite Amy Adams movies, we wanted to talk about Disenchanted. This is the new one again on Disney Plus right now. You can stream it. It is the sequel to Enchanted, which came out 15 years ago in 2007. So, Enchanted was a pretty big hit. It's only gained popularity over the years. And so, fans have been kind of clamoring for a sequel for many years, wanting the whole gang to get back together. And look, this is evidence that you shouldn't always listen to the fans, I think, because I did not enjoy Disenchanted, unfortunately. It really well, I'll get the good stuff out of the way first. It has, I think, great production design. The movie actually
Hmm.
looks really nice. You
Sure.
can tell they built a lot of sets, and a lot of craftsmanship went into it. I even feel like the special effects were quite good overall. I thought they worked pretty well. There is some fun music here too, and I think a lot of the songs are pretty well written, and I kind of catchy. So I kind of enjoyed those elements of it. I think the basic idea of the story works as well, but the execution wasn't there.
Mm.
And so, I think it had some script issues. I think they needed some rewrites. I think the direction just, it didn't seem like it had that same kind of passion behind it. It felt
Yeah.
kind of like they had to do this rather than they wanted to do this,
Hmm.
is the best way I can describe it. But
Yeah, I
look,
can see that.
the cast, though, I still think they're good here. I still
Hmm.
think, I mean, Amy Adams, she's always good. She's always
Yeah.
trying her best. And I think, she does a pretty good job trying to carry this movie as well as she can. Patrick Dempsey, I like him. I think he's good.
Hmm. Hmm.
The young actress who plays the teenage daughter, I thought did a pretty good job as well. Maya Rudolph is just hamming it up. You
Mhm.
know, her and her kind of two goons are kind of just hamming it up here, having a good time. James Marsden, I always want more of him. I feel
Mhm.
like if he had been in it more, I might have liked it a little bit better. I just like him as an actor. I think he plays this part really well, but he's not in it a ton. It's not very well paced. I found myself getting a little bored throughout it. It just seemed very predictable. Um, just certain elements of it. I'll get into more details in a minute, but um, you started to watch this. You said you didn't get to finish it, but what did you think of what you saw?
Yeah, I got about halfway through it, and I kind of felt sort of the same way, although I didn't want to unfairly criticize.
Sure.
But it just felt like it was, I mean, no pun intended, but like some of the magic was missing from the first
Yes.
one, and
Right.
even some of the humor, like in the first one, you've got like there's kind of a running joke of Patrick Dempsey's character, like when the other character is about to break out into song, he's like, oh no, I don't
Right.
want this to happen, and that kind of thing,
Right.
and stuff like that. I just felt like fun things like that were sort of missing in the parts
Mm,
that I watched,
yeah.
and I just wasn't getting great vibes from it, and so I thought,
Mm,
well, I'll have to circle back, maybe like my daughter or something and watch it. But
yeah.
yeah, I wasn't feeling like, well, for one thing, I had a lot of other Amy Adams movies I wanted to watch,
Sure,
and I
sure.
wasn't getting like top five vibes from it, so I moved
Right.
on for now.
Right. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, you made the right choice going to some other Amy Adams movies because yeah, it was like you said, magic is just it's not quite there. It didn't quite manage to live up to the first one, and
Yeah.
that's always the hard part when doing a sequel.
Mhm.
Again, I think they found a way in that was interesting. And the trailer really got me because it looked like, Giselle kind of she's disenfranchised with the whole real world setting that she's in. She wants to go back to the fairy tale world.
Right.
So she makes this wish that her real life would now be a fairy tale, and it
Yeah.
causes all this kind of mayhem. And it seemed as
Yeah.
if she was going to kind of slowly become this kind of evil stepmother type
Yeah.
character.
Yeah.
Instead, they kind of went with more of just like it's starting to magically happen to her. She doesn't really have a say in it. And it's
Mm.
kind of becomes this dual personality thing. And it was
Uh,
just a little too complicated and a little too weird to me. I
yeah.
felt like
Yeah.
if she had kind of started to lose her way
Mhm.
naturally and then kind of come back, that would have worked
Mhm.
better. But yeah, it's just
Right.
it didn't quite work for me. So
Yeah.
again, Amy Adams, it's not her fault.
Yeah, she was
But
fine in what I saw. It wasn't her.
yeah, she does a fine job here, and it looks like they're having fun doing it. So ultimately, I gave it 2.5 stars. It was kind of
Okay.
one of those that I didn't hate it while watching it, but
Mhm.
after I watched it, I was like, I'm probably never going to watch that again. I'll
Yeah.
go back to the original
Gotcha.
before I'll go back to
Yeah.
this one for sure.
Right. Right.
Well, that is our review of Disenchanted. You know what? Let's talk a little bit before we jump into our top five,
Mhm.
kind of how you went about choosing these. And we've talked about this before. We've done actors on this podcast. We've done top five Tom Cruise, Tom Hanks, now Amy Adams. So, what was your kind of philosophy? What were you kind of looking for when you were building this top five list?
This one's quite a bit different
Okay.
because, for instance, Tom Cruise podcast or Spielberg podcast, there were numerous ones that I felt like I put in my top five.
Yeah.
And what I found on this sort of journey of going through a lot of Amy Adams films was that there, not to her fault, but there's a lot of the films she's been in, she's good in, but the film itself just
Mm,
wasn't very entertaining
okay. Yeah.
I'll throw out a couple like
Yeah.
Big Eyes, for instance, is one
Oh,
that like I mean, I'm about 2.5 stars on that one, maybe
yeah.
two.
Okay.
But she was terrific in it, but
Okay.
where the film kind of went, I didn't really care
Mm,
for so much.
okay.
But I found that with a lot of hers that I tried, where she
Hmm.
was fine in it, but the film itself, I watched one called Her that was just kind of
Oh,
garbage.
yeah.
I know a few others like that.
Okay.
So in this case, my goal was just to basically find the top five that were at least a 2.5 star or above,
Right. Sure.
and I actually found that there weren't that many. So I
Okay.
don't want to discount her because I think she's a tremendous actress.
Right.
And then you've got a couple I mentioned in honorable mentions that she's just not in very much. So I didn't want to say,
Yeah.
that one's in her top five. So I
Right.
honestly wasn't left with a whole lot of choices of
Yeah.
movies that were number one, pretty good,
Yeah.
2.5 stars or higher,
Sure.
and where she was the lead. So I struggled a
Yeah.
little bit. Maybe
Okay.
you less so, but we can get into that as
Okay.
we break down the films.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. No, that's a great that's I'm glad you talked about all that because that's really good and that brings in a different perspective because yeah, I do think she's in several really great movies. And some that I'd seen for the first time this week that
Hmm.
I'd been wanting to watch and finally got to watch. So yeah, I mean for me when I'm looking at any actor or actress, I'm looking at primarily the performance, right? So
Hmm.
that's for me kind of paramount is was her performance the best performance. So basically it's almost more top five Amy Adams performances than it is movies
Sure.
for me.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Gotcha.
but it's definitely I mean my top five are all movies that I really like too. So
Hmm.
that's definitely an element of it as well. But yeah, I wanted to give again, I always like a variety as well in my picks. So, I kind of try to get, something a little more dramatic, something a little lighter.
Yeah.
Kind of, I want every different aspect of, her kind of personality and different kinds of characters to be represented
Hmm.
here that she's played. So, yeah, that's kind of how I broke down my top five here.
Gotcha.
All right, so now we're going to jump into our list. But before we do our actual top five, there are some honorable mentions we wanted to talk about. Again, she's my favorite actress, so I really like everything she's been in. I always think she's
Mm.
good at least. So there's quite a few here. I didn't realize one you talked about during our horror comedy podcast, Drop Dead Gorgeous. She's
Oh
actually in
yeah, she
that.
is. She is in that. Yeah. Did you
Yeah,
happen to watch it?
I've watched it before. I haven't
Oh, that's
rewatched
right.
it. I've only
I
seen it
forgot. You
once,
watched it
but
once. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, she was good
It was
in
a
that,
short
and
part.
yeah, it's a very small role, but yeah, I
She's
think
young.
that's
Yeah.
technically her first role. So,
Ah,
um, yeah, that's the first credited role at least. So yeah, she's in that, which I wanted to bring up because we've talked about that before. I know you're a fan of that one, so
yes.
that's a fun one. One my brother really likes. I don't care for it as much. It's just the voice part in the live action Underdog movie. Have you
Oh,
seen this?
no,
So
no.
Underdog, based
It's
on the
live
old,
action?
yeah, based on the old
Oh.
cartoon, and there's a Disney
Oh.
made a live action one. Probably it's probably been at least 10 years ago,
Hmm.
and I think it's Jason Lee who voices Underdog, and then she voices kind of the female main role other dog. So that's a fun one, but not my favorite. One that I had almost forgotten about was Talladega Nights. She's in that
Oh,
one.
is she? Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. Have you not seen that?
I did see it and I did not like it.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, yeah. She
Not
plays
my
a
kind of. I don't like Will Ferrell when he's like
oh,
nasty. I
I
like Will.
gotcha.
You know what I mean?
You
Like
like Elf Will
Elf.
Ferrell. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the kind of. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was okay. I saw it in the
Yeah.
theater. It was okay.
Right. Gotcha. I haven't seen it in a while, honestly, but I'd like to rewatch it because my wife hasn't seen it, but she'll probably
Gotcha.
hate it because she doesn't like that kind of humor either. Um, so yeah, she does have a role in that. The woman in the
And let me clarify
window.
too.
Oh
It does.
yeah,
It's
go
not
ahead.
necessarily that kind of humor. It's that I don't know. For some reason, I just don't want to see Will Ferrell in that kind of role. Like, I don't
Ah,
really find him funny when he's being just sort of like nasty.
I gotcha. I
Some
gotcha.
actors, yeah, like Billy
Right.
Bob Thornton or something, maybe,
Sure, sure,
But
right.
Will Ferrell, I don't know. I'd rather see him in his I guess more PG-13ish kind of
Right.
stuff for whatever reason. You know how it is with certain
Have you seen
actors.
Kicking and Screaming?
Yeah, that's a good one. See,
Oh,
that's an
that's
example of what I'm talking
hilarious.
about. Yeah,
That is
that's
hilarious.
that's good Will Ferrell to me. That
Yes,
is a perfect example.
I
Yeah,
agree. Yeah, that's one of his best for sure.
yeah.
Um, Another one she was in, which I didn't care for as much. But again, I thought she was good in it. The Woman in the Window. It's a Netflix kind of
Mm.
thriller she did with Gary Oldman, just I think a year or two
Hmm.
ago. So that was one. I just watched Charlie Wilson's War, which I
Oh,
hadn't
I
seen
haven't seen that
before.
one.
Yeah, it's a smaller role. Again,
Okay,
it's Tom
okay.
Hanks and Julia Roberts. It's their
Yeah,
movie, but she has a
right.
pretty significant supporting role in it that she did a good job
Gotcha.
in. Hillbilly Elegy, I liked.
Hmm.
That's a kind of intense drama based on a true story. Ron Howard directed it, and
Hmm.
she plays a main role there. And I thought she did a very good job. Another one I got to watch for the first time, Trouble with the Curve, which is her and Clint
Oh, haven't
Eastwood.
seen that one.
Yeah, it's kind of it's a different
Oh,
kind of sports film because he's a recruiter. He's like a scout for
okay,
the Atlanta
okay.
Braves, and she's his daughter. They have this kind of strained relationship, and It's really well done. It was really good. Great
Hmm.
acting performances by both of them. The movie itself was okay, but the performances were really good. Then we have well, I'll let you mention a couple more before I keep going. Did you
Yeah,
have any
yeah.
you
I
wanted
mean,
to talk about?
gotta mention the Zack Snyder trilogy and
Oh,
her
sure.
work in that, because she's lovely and effective, and
Yeah,
really helps given the few number of scenes that she has. But she
sure.
is an ancillary character in that,
Hmm.
in those
Hmm.
ensemble films.
Right.
I I really need to mention a movie called The X. Have you seen The
The
X?
X. I have not seen this. No.
It's a romantic comedy from,
Okay.
I want to say, 2008, around
Mm,
that time,
yeah.
and I'd never seen it before,
Okay.
and she's only in like two scenes, but the movie itself is hilarious. I mean, it's
Oh,
so
okay.
funny. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Mind you, Jason Bateman's in it. He's like my one of my favorite actors, probably my
Sure.
top
Right.
five for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's so funny in it. And Zach Braff is in it. He's okay, but he
Okay.
does well. And
Yeah.
just if you get a chance to find this romantic comedy,
Okay.
it's super funny.
Great.
But yeah, maybe two scenes with Amy Adams, so I can't really count that one.
Right. Yeah.
And then another one I'll mention is a film called Junebug, and
I wanted to
that
see that. I
was
didn't get a chance to watch it.
yeah. Well, you mentioned Hillbilly Elegy,
Yeah.
and it's a very similar kind of role,
Oh.
although Junebug, I mean, her acting is very good in it, but it just kind of felt like a warm up for Hillbilly Elegy, because the
Okay.
Junebug itself it's slow and
Yeah.
not a lot goes on, and so
Okay.
she was given so much more and to
Okay.
do, and showed so much more range in Hillbilly Elegy. So
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. Cool.
yeah, yeah. And then I did want to throw out a couple which may be counter to what you're going to mention, but there's four others, at least three others that I saw that I didn't like.
Okay.
Well, I didn't even get through all of them. Julie and Julia,
Mm.
it was okay. I tried to watch some of that, like
I was gonna
the
mention that's my wife's favorite. That's one of her favorite
oh,
movies, just in general. She watches it
really?
all the time, so I've seen it many
Gotcha.
times, and I do think
Okay.
she's really good in it. But yeah, it's not a five-star film for me. So
Yeah, that's
yeah, I
it. It's
didn't
just it
include it.
wasn't going to make my top five. I wouldn't say I
Yeah,
didn't like it, but
right.
I got about halfway through, and again, I was trying to speed through a lot of these that I hadn't seen, and I'm like,
Yeah,
this just isn't doing a lot for me. I'm gonna move
sure,
on to the
sure.
next one.
Right.
Then there's a movie called Leap Year from 2010.
Yeah, I've
Um,
seen that.
have you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I feel like I sort of hated this movie
Yeah.
because I just didn't dig it. The
Yeah.
sort of the overall atmosphere of it, and
Hmm.
the tone, I just wasn't getting a lot of comedy or
Yeah.
interest in the
Yeah.
entire thing. What are
I
your thoughts?
agree. Yeah, it's one of her weakest, I would say. It's just as a movie, it doesn't quite
Yeah.
connect for some reason.
Yeah.
And she, again, she's fine. It's just not, it didn't feel like she was giving it her all. It's
Hmm.
one of the only times I could say that, where
Hmm.
it just, nothing about it stood out, for
Right.
me.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. I just
yeah,
didn't like the plot that much. It just wasn't that interesting.
right, right.
And and then the last one I'll mention, I mean, we're supposed to be doing honorable mentions. This one was just I didn't like it at all. It's a movie called The Master.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Yeah, she
with
she got the best supporting actress nomination for that.
she did.
She
Well, now
did.
she wasn't bad at it.
Yeah,
That's not what it was. It was
right,
that it's
right.
Joaquin Phoenix
Yep,
is he stars in it, and just right
yep.
from the opening scene, it's just kind of a he's just kind of a nasty character.
Yeah, it's very
It, the,
off-putting.
yes, yeah, and the film is clearly based on Scientology, and so
Right.
that was another reason why I wanted to watch it.
Yeah.
But I just did not really like a lot of the content,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I haven't reviewed it yet, but I mean, I'm probably at like 1 star. I barely made it
Yeah.
through it. Maybe
Gotcha.
a star and a half.
Okay.
So
Gotcha.
I don't know why I want to mention that in the honorable. This is more like a less honorable mention.
Sure.
But anyway, so those are the other notable ones that I had.
Gotcha. Yeah. I just had a couple more. American Hustle. It's another that's she was actually nominated for Best Actress for that one. And but that one again, I feel like is more of an ensemble, even though she's one of
Mm,
the major players in it.
mhm.
And I like the movie a lot. I think it's very good, but it didn't quite make my top five. It's a true story, and it's worth watching. It's got Christian Bale in it, Jeremy
Mhm.
Renner. It's really good cast, but that one didn't quite make it. Another one by the same director, David O. Russell. He did a movie called The Fighter, which I'm a really big
Oh,
fan of, and
I
I
haven't
think.
seen that one. Yeah,
Oh, okay, yeah, I would put that on your watch list because that one is very well done.
that's
Another
Christian
true
Bale too,
story.
isn't it?
Christian Bale, Mark
Mhm.
Wahlberg, they play brothers,
That's
and then
right.
Amy
Yeah.
Adams is the love interest, and she does a phenomenal job
Mm.
with her Boston accent in that one, very
Mm.
believable.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, she does a great job with that, and another one she was nominated for Best Supporting Actress for, so
Wow.
that one's definitely worth watching. You mentioned Big Eyes earlier. I got to watch that for the first time this week,
Hmm.
and I liked it more than you did. I
Mm.
really actually enjoyed that story. I didn't know anything about those people. It was just kind of a fascinating, true story. Big fan of Christoph Waltz too. I think he was
Yes.
great in
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
and those two really carried the movie for me.
Hmm.
And it's a Tim Burton movie, and it did not feel like a Tim Burton movie. So I really felt like he
True.
was kind of
Absolutely
stretching
true. Yeah.
himself a little bit with that. It
Yeah.
wasn't as quirky
Yeah.
and weird as he usually is. So I
Yeah.
did quite enjoy it actually. I had a good time watching that one.
Oh. Yeah.
So
If I could say something else about
yeah,
that,
yeah, go ahead.
I didn't know if it was in your top five, so I didn't want to say a whole lot about it.
It's not, yeah.
Because I figured I would bring it up later when you mentioned it. But since you
hmm
brought it up again,
hmm
yeah, Christoph Waltz is really great in that movie, and
Yeah,
it's different than what I've seen him do before.
it is.
And
Yeah.
so I really liked the first act,
hmm
and I think it's a true story, right?
It is. Yep.
And so I get that, but it wasn't really the movie I was hoping it was going to turn into, and it
I
kind
see.
of goes like spirals down and
It
down and
does.
down.
Yeah.
So by the end, I'm like, gosh, this isn't what I
Yeah.
was sort of thinking it might turn into.
Right.
So I mean, I can't fault the movie for that per se, but it just
Right.
I wanted to go in a different direction. It's based on a true story, so how can it? But
Right. Yeah.
anyway, I did get a fair amount of enjoyment from it.
Okay. Gotcha. Good. Good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, that's good to hear. And then the last one I wanted to mention. Well, actually, two more I'll mention. One
Mm.
I watched last night. Nocturnal Animals.
Oh, I
Um,
watched that one too.
this is a super intense movie.
It is.
It
Yeah.
is crazy.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I really, I mean, I thought she was great. I thought all the performances were actually excellent throughout the film.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, not one that is just one you can throw on anytime and just watch for fun, because yeah, it's
Right.
got a lot, but there's a lot of interesting themes in it, a lot of interesting
Yes.
ideas. The whole
Uh-huh.
premise of the film is so unique,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
I just kind of enjoyed it for that element. And
Did you
um,
like the sort of two movies in one kind of thing?
I actually did. I thought
Yeah.
that worked really well.
Did you see? I didn't really. I felt like the intense plot was
Right.
interesting, and then the other
Yeah.
one was just kind of like it was almost like they were sort of forced together, you know.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So, but I'm gonna do a review on that one. But I
Okay.
did find it pretty interesting
Yeah.
and
And
hard to watch at times,
yeah, yeah,
you
and
know.
it's interesting that Tom Ford directed the fashion designer,
Oh,
and
really?
yeah, yeah, I think it's his second movie. I can't remember the other one he
Huh.
did, but I've enjoyed both of them. They
Hmm.
just have a really interesting look to them, and um,
Yeah.
yeah, very unsettling, and but
Yes. Yes.
engaging too. And
Yeah. And she
so
was good in that. She was good in
yeah,
that.
yeah, she was very good. So that was the other one I mentioned. The last one I wanted to mention, very close to making the list, Night at the Museum, Battle of the Smithsonian. I think this is so much fun. Her playing
Oh,
Amelia
really?
Earhart. Yeah, she
I don't
does a
think I
great.
saw it.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, she's playing
Yeah.
Amelia Earhart.
Uh-huh.
And she's just got this, it's just such a spunky kind of,
Mm.
you know, the 1920s way of talking. Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
such a specific performance, and she does a great
Huh.
job with it. So
Okay.
it was very nearly my top five. The movie itself, I think, is fine. She's great though. It's one of those. So
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah.
it's a lot of fun to watch her in that. But yeah, if
Okay.
you haven't seen it, it's on Disney Plus, so you can check it out on
Okay.
there. But yeah, that one was very close to making it. So
Gotcha.
um, all right, well, that's all my honorable mentions. Is that all yours?
That's all mine.
All right, those are our honorable mentions. Now we're ready for our top five Amy Adams movies. Bert, why don't you kick us off?
And I'm going with The Woman in the Window from last year.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I just mentioned that
Yeah,
in my
yeah.
honorable mentions. Cool.
Yeah, I mean, Amy Adams gets to stretch quite a bit in this film.
Yeah.
Obviously it's got to be a remake or retelling of Rear Window,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Except instead of being in a wheelchair, she's got agoraphobia, so she doesn't want to leave.
Right.
It's just tell a little bit about it. It's a psychological thriller. She can't, she's plays a woman who can't leave her house, and
Mhm.
then she witnesses something across the street that's nefarious.
Mhm.
And I really like when Amy Adams isn't afraid to dress down a little bit.
Yeah.
And there's times in this film where there's, you know, no makeup, and
Right.
she's just plain Amy Adams,
Yep.
and lets herself be that, you know.
Yes.
And that's great to see. Gary Oldman, obviously is, and he's good in anything he's in.
Did you hear
He's
he
looking a
just
bit.
announced that he's retiring?
What?
Yeah. He just announced, I
I did
think,
not
a
hear
week or
that.
two ago that he's got one more film he's making and then he's gonna retire.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it can
He's earned
happen. Yes,
it.
exactly. Yeah, and I was going to say Oldman is looking a little more like old man lately, but that could be
Yes.
makeup. Like I literally was wondering, did they old age him, or like why
Maybe.
would they? You know, but maybe
I
he's
don't
just
know.
looking older.
Maybe.
But I wanted more of him in this movie.
Mm,
And the film has a bit of a twist ending, and I thought it was pretty handled pretty well. Um, and overall, the film held my interest. It's more of a drama, really,
yeah.
than a thriller.
Right.
And like I said, Amy Adams just shows lot of range, and it's
Hmm.
quite a complex kind of role. There's a lot of different things going on, mentally,
Right.
with
Yeah.
her, and she has a job where she deals with psychological things. So it was just
Right.
very, it was pretty wide ranging, you know, as far as that goes. So yeah, so I thought it was just a great performance. She's in pretty much the entire movie, so it
Yeah.
really showcases her pretty well.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I like I said, I liked this movie. I didn't love it. I wasn't, over the moon about it or anything, but it was a pretty solid thriller
Uh-huh.
overall. I'm a huge Rear Window fan, so it just couldn't stack up to the original. But no, she was great in it, though. I mean, she's like you said, she's dealing with a lot in that movie. She's carrying the whole movie, and the other actors in it do a great job as well. So their kind of
Yeah,
interactions were really interesting and engaging, and so
right.
yeah, that's a solid for your top five. Don't
Yeah, I
fault
had
you
to
at all
think.
for that.
Yeah, I had to think too of Disturbia, the Shia LaBeouf
I
film.
haven't seen
And
that one. Yeah, I've heard
oh, you
that's pretty
haven't seen
good.
it?
No, I
I
haven't seen
thought
that one.
I thought you told me you didn't like it, but if you haven't seen it, I think it's really good. It's obviously a more modern. It feels more modern than this film actually,
Right.
but it's a lot lighter, and Shia is
Okay.
great in it. I think,
Okay.
unless you hate him.
No, I'm a
Some
big
people
fan
don't
of
like
him,
Shia.
actually.
Oh, are you? You
Yeah.
should definitely check it out. I think
Okay.
it's
Yeah.
really good. And yeah, it's got a lot of his comedy, the way
Okay.
he does things. So I think
Yeah.
you'd really enjoy that one. It's a similar story, but it's just a lot of fun.
Yeah. I don't know how that one passed me by.
I've seen
I'll
it a
have
few
to,
times.
yeah, I'll have to check that one out for sure. All right. Well, that's a solid number five, Woman in the Window. Yep. Good pick. That's on Netflix right now. You can watch it. My number five is on Disney Plus, so you can watch it on there. It is The Muppets from 2011.
Oh, I did see
Um,
this one actually in the
oh, did you?
theater.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it was
Yeah. So
decent.
okay, okay. See, I'm a
Yeah.
huge Muppet fan, so
Okay.
I've
Okay.
seen
Fair
all the
enough.
movies numerous times.
Gotcha.
I've watched, the series and all that. So,
Yeah.
um, the 2011 film is sort of a soft reboot. It's kind of their resurgence. They hadn't had a movie in, I think, 10 years or maybe more.
Oh.
So, Disney got the rights and they decided to make a new movie, and they wanted to definitely pay homage to the original Muppet movies and shows, and they do a great job with that here, balancing the kind of sense of humor. It's a very unique sense of humor. It's almost like a parody in some ways.
Mm,
Very kind of smarmy in many other ways, very clever kind of humor, but also has that very kind of earnest, hopeful tone that the
mm,
Muppets always had, that Jim Henson always, wanted them to
okay.
have. And so,
Yeah.
I think they do a great job nailing that here. And Amy Adams specifically, her role is so great because it really shows off her talent, not just as an actress, but as a singer and a dancer as well.
Oh.
And
Oh.
so, it's a musical, as Muppet movies are, and so really get to
Yeah.
show off all of her different abilities
Hmm.
in ways that we really hadn't seen up into this point very much. So just really like, the again, actors in Muppet movies, I don't think they get enough credit because you're acting off of a puppet essentially, and so you have to still have the same kind of emotion that you would have with another actor with this kind of little sock basically. So it's pretty
Right.
impressive to think about that, and then to think about all the singing and dancing numbers she's doing, and
Yeah.
everything else. And again, that tone of the Muppets is so specific, and she just fit
Hmm.
flawlessly into it.
Okay.
the comedic timing is all there,
Hmm.
and all of it. So yeah, if you haven't seen The Muppets, just called The Muppets, from 2011, definitely recommend it. It's a movie I watch all the time, numerous times I've seen this
Hmm.
one. So, and it's one the whole family can enjoy. So
Yes.
really like that one a lot. Again, it's streaming right now on Disney Plus. So that's my number five, The Muppets.
I think I'll have to revisit that one. I did like it when I saw it.
Yeah,
I don't even remember Amy Adams being in it, but I'm sure I
yeah.
liked her in it. The Muppet movie I really like,
What's
funny
that?
enough, is Muppets from Space.
Oh yeah, see that one I've only actually seen one time. That's the only
Oh,
one I've
really?
only seen one time, but I did
Yeah,
enjoy it. Yeah, it was fun.
it's funny. Jeffrey Tambor is so funny in that movie.
Yes. Oh
But
yeah, he's
yeah,
great.
yeah, good
Yeah.
pick.
Great. All right, now we're on to your number four. What you got?
Going with American Hustle.
Oh, great. Okay, great. Excellent.
Yeah, yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, that was
It's
one I consider. I had this in my top five when I first made my list before I started rewatching everying.
mhm,
This and The Fighter were both in there. So yeah, I'm glad you brought this
gotcha.
one up.
Yeah, it's after I watched it, I rewatched it recently here, and I got to thinking, what genre is this film? Because
Yeah,
I think it's a dark comedy, but you don't really laugh very much.
right.
Um, but
And it's based on
it's
a
sort
true story too, which is crazy.
right. Yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously, some of the best actors working today. I mean, some of
Yeah.
them, a couple of them, I think you mentioned, but Christian Bale, Bradley Cooper, Amy
Mm.
Adams, uh, what's his name?
Jeremy Renner.
Jennifer. I was gonna say Jennifer Lawrence
Oh,
too. Yeah,
Jennifer
Jeremy
Lawrence. Yep.
Renner.
Yep.
Yeah, and a cameo by De Niro. I
Yeah.
guess it's a cameo
Yeah.
anyway, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. One scene.
and that director, I looked him up too. That David Russell.
Hmm.
He also directed Jennifer Lawrence and Bradley Cooper in Silver Linings Playbook.
Oh yeah.
And I guess De Niro was in that as well. Now I
Yep.
watched that movie and liked it, but
Yeah.
if I had more time, I probably would have gone back and rewatched it.
Hmm.
So I remember that one being pretty good too, but I couldn't remember enough about it, so I didn't
Hmm.
include
Right.
it. So and this is like a really sort of like a fast-paced film,
Yeah.
brimming with dialogue. This film is
Right.
very unique because there's barely a second of dead air. You
Right.
know, many times, if not most times, anytime there's like a transition where like normally in a movie you'll see a character walk into a place or you see a car pulling up or something
Yeah.
and they'll just set the stage for that. Well, in
Right.
this film, every single time that kind of thing happens, there's dialogue
Yes.
over the top of it and like
Right.
filling you in on like background of characters or story or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like
Yeah.
a lot to take in. I mean, this is essentially
Right.
like a 4 hour film boiled down to like into like 2 hours
Right.
and 15 minutes by the
Sure.
time you figure all the content compared to
Yeah.
a normal film. It's kind of like Goodfellas in that sense,
Yeah.
where
Yeah. Has that vibe.
right.
Hmm.
And I got to thinking too, I wanted to ask you about this. Do you think filmmakers um use this method of voiceover during those kind of transitions because they're trying to cut screen time? They're trying to cut runtime.
They probably are. I would guess that way because yeah, I mean, as a filmmaker, when you're editing, you definitely don't want your movie to feel like it's too long. And so I'm sure, they were trying everything they could do to make it feel like keep that pacing up. Because like you said, there's so much content here. It's one of these true stories that those are always difficult to do. They're typically 2.5 hours, 3 hour movies. So yeah,
Right.
I'm sure that that was one of the ways that they said, "Hey, let's condense this thing. We can do this to do that." And so,
Mhm.
yeah, they did a great job with that in that movie.
Right. Yeah. And the plot was decent.
Hmm.
I feel like the film is almost more of just like an acting showcase
Yeah,
because you
right.
know what I mean? There's so much
Yeah,
fun and crazy stuff that they give the characters to
there is.
do. And
Yeah.
it's just very enjoyable to watch for the most
Hmm.
part.
Hmm.
And then I did want to say though, the accents do come and go. And
Mm,
Amy Adams herself is guilty of it a little bit, but also and I want to say especially Jennifer Lawrence. And I like her.
mm.
I like her, don't get me
Me
wrong,
too. Yeah.
but like the New York, Brooklyn, Bronx kind of accent,
Right.
like it's not too hard to do, but I get
Yeah.
where they get going so much on this kind of speedy dialogue and
Yeah.
quick pace that sometimes they lose the accent. And if
Right.
I'm just watching it just to kind of kick back and enjoy the film,
Sure.
that'd be one thing, but I
Right.
started to hone in on it a little bit and I did
Hmm.
notice that so that's a little
Yeah.
bit spotty in the
Yeah.
movie.
Sure.
But anyway, it's still an enjoyable film.
Yeah.
So and again, it showcases the actors, including Amy Adams, big
Yep.
time. So I had to include it.
Yeah. And I love the fashion. I'm a big fan of 70s fashion too.
It's there. It's
It's
there for
so over
sure.
the top. I love it. It's great. So
Right.
yeah, good pick. Good pick. All right. Moving on to my number four. movie I just watched for the first time this week. It is from 2008. It is Doubt. This film is
Oh,
uh,
the Catholic one.
yep, yep, yep,
Yeah.
yep. All takes place all
Right.
takes place in a
Oh boy.
Catholic school,
Yeah.
and it's directed and written by a guy named John Patrick Shanley,
Hmm. I've
who
heard that name.
is he's a playwright actually.
Oh.
He's known for writing plays, but he's directed a couple of movies. One of them I mentioned on our Tom Hanks podcast, one of my favorite Tom Hanks movie, Joe versus the Volcano. He's responsible for writing and directing that one as well. So a director I'm already a
Different
fan
kind of
of.
movie
And
compared to this one,
so
right?
yeah, right. So he's doing something totally different from Joe versus the Volcano here. It's very
Yeah.
real,
So
very
say.
grounded. Um and it's a movie that just covers so many different ideas and themes, religion, morality, authority, faith, fear. All these are subjects that are covered in really interesting ways. And Amy Adams has such a unique role here because she's sort of the one in the middle between Philip Seymour Hoffman and Meryl Streep.
Mhm.
And so she has such a difficult role acting alongside these two titans, right, of acting. And she holds her own very well,
Mm.
and just plays her part very just real, very, very nuanced, very emotional.
Ah,
It gets very uncomfortable certain
I
scenes,
bet. Yeah.
and she just does a great job here. So she was nominated Best Supporting Actress for this
Oh.
role, and definitely deserved it. So yeah, it's one that there's so much to talk about it with it, but suffice it to say that if you're looking for a kind of tour de force of acting performances, this trio, I mean, they just do a phenomenal
Hmm.
job here.
Did you say
Um,
Philip Seymour Hoffman's one of them?
yep, yep, yep.
Yeah, he was in The Master with her as well.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. He was. Yes, exactly. So yeah, this was a couple years before they did that.
Yeah.
And yeah, all of them did just a phenomenal job. So movie that just was really affecting and
Mm.
impactful, and has a lot to say that I really enjoyed. Specifically
Okay.
the performances. That was it's very well written as well. The dialogue is excellent, but the performances and the way that the dialogue is delivered is obviously a huge part of that. So yeah, that one had to make the top five. So that's in number four. You can stream it right now
Okay.
on Paramount Plus as well. So, all right, now we're on to your number three. What you got?
I I got to say something about my top three.
Yeah,
It was very hard trying
yeah,
to figure out which order they were going to be in.
right,
And probably harder than any person we've done.
yeah,
And so, but what I'm going to put at number three right now could change in 5 minutes.
right.
No, I'm locking in number three with Enchanted.
Oh, great. Okay, cool, awesome, awesome.
Yeah, and I think it's got pretty wide appeal. But I
Yeah,
mean, obviously, Amy Adams is just delightful in this role. I can't
sure.
imagine anyone playing the part better than her. More,
Yeah.
delicate and
Hmm.
cute, like she
Right.
does. It really sells the concept of the film,
Yeah.
because it's got to be that princess come to life.
Right.
So there's going to be kind of a limited cast for who could sort of nail that part.
Yes.
um Marsden, I always
Yeah.
forget how to say his name.
Yep.
But he's always good as the prince. When you get to see him.
Right.
I really like Patrick Dempsey here too. He was kind of an
Hmm.
80s star,
Yeah. Right.
and so it's nice to see him. I haven't seen him in a lot of movies as a older actor. And of
Yeah.
course this one's now 15 years old, but
Right.
he's really good, although his character's written kind of as a downer at times,
Right.
for such a happy movie, but I still
Yeah.
like him.
Yeah.
And there's just a lot of humor.
Yep.
It's just it breaks with what you traditionally get with Disney princess films,
Yeah. Yeah.
musicals. So I like
I,
that. It's not as edgy as something like Shrek.
right.
But it's
Sure.
enough to make things fresh.
Yep.
And so it's one that the entire family can watch, and it's got a lot of rewatchability. So yeah, it's for that reason I put it at my number three.
Great. Great. Great pick. Good one. All right, we'll jump into my number three, which is one that you brought up earlier, and it's Man of Steel. So I
Oh,
did,
okay,
yeah,
fair
I did.
enough.
I
I
did
could
put
see
Man
it.
of Steel. Yeah, because I really do feel like she's the co-lead in that film.
Okay.
Because yeah, it's of course, it's Clark Kent's journey, it's Superman's story, but
Sure.
I feel like she really has a vitally important role in
She
the
does.
movie.
Yeah.
Not just
Yeah.
for his character, but for the story as a whole. I mean, it's her that,
Gotcha. Gotcha.
kind of unveils that these aliens exist, right? I mean, she's kind of the reporter that's on the story
That's
and
true. Yeah.
discovers the whole thing. So, and she, has a role throughout the entire story. There's no point where she kind of drops out of the story. She's really in it pretty consistently. And so, I just think, look, I'm a huge DC fan, as you can tell. I really like this movie. We've talked about it, brought it up before.
Yeah.
Zack Snyder, one of my favorite directors, just did a great job with this whole thing. And she's the perfect Lois Lane. I mean, she has every element of the character from the comics that you could possibly want. She's
Mhm.
tenacious, she's tough, she's intelligent, she's compassionate. She's this kind of truth seeker,
Mhm.
and has such an important part to play again in the kind of dynamic with Superman. In this movie, they just do a great job. It's that kind of first contact story, but it's also that kind of romantic story that I think is hard to pull off, and they really do a great job. I think she and Henry Cavill have great chemistry on screen, so I fully buy into their relationship, and she just does a great job in every scene she's in. As
Yeah.
again, someone who's read the comics, watched all the movies and the animated series and
Yeah.
all of it, I just feel like she kind of embodies the character better than I probably anyone on screen before. I really just really like her portrayal of Lois, and what they did with that one movie that I'm singling out. But as you mentioned, what she does in Batman v Superman and Justice League and all of it is all work
Mhm.
together so well. And she gets to play so many different types of shades of Lois in those sequels as well, which
Sure.
is
Yeah.
even kind of in some ways more interesting. But here, I just think she does a great job. So yeah, I ended up kind of was on the fence about including this, but when I said I was going to include it, I was like, yeah, it's definitely making top three. So yep, number three, Man of Steel.
Well, and I can't fault you for it. I mean, honestly, I thought about it,
Yeah,
um, and so I'm glad you included it. I will say,
yeah,
Man of Steel is the highest rating that I would give a film out of any of these that we're talking about
yeah.
today,
Right,
because
right.
it's sort of what I gravitate toward the most is that
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of film.
Sure, sure.
But so yeah, so thank you for including it. Because yeah, she is, like I said before, she's great. She's just soft and delicate when she needs to be, and then
Right.
she does get some range throughout
Yeah,
those three movies. But
yeah,
yeah, good pick.
definitely. Great. Okay, so that's my number three pick. Bert, what's your number two?
I went with Hillbilly Elegy from
Oh, cool.
my number
Okay.
two.
Great, great.
Yeah,
Good. Good pick.
yeah, and this is just it's a brutal look at what life is like for I think a lot of Americans living in poverty, rural America,
Yeah,
often poorly educated. I mean, that's often a factor. Drug use,
right.
abuse. I mean, those are all.
Hmm.
I think it plagues a lot of our nation.
Yep, it does.
This film, I personally I think that if it got at least 4 Oscar nominations, it wouldn't have surprised me. I'm not sure if it got any, but
Yeah,
I would say there's at least 3 acting performances here, and even Best Picture I could see.
yeah.
Not that I think it was my like favorite movie of the year or anything,
Sure.
but I could just see where just acting wise where the Academy might be drawn to. I don't. Did you happen to look up to see if anything was nominated for that?
I don't think it was, unfortunately, but I'll do a
Yeah,
quick
I'm surprised. I mean, it's a
search.
Ron Howard film,
Yeah,
very acclaimed, obviously.
right, right.
Um, and then Amy Adams here, once again, she refuses to care about her appearance.
Hmm.
And it's reminiscent almost of Charlize Theron in Monster, you know?
Oh, yeah, I haven't seen that, but I've heard, yeah, she goes kind of full method on that one.
Yeah, and I definitely bought her in this role. And I think that there's a actor Owen Astalos that plays a young version of the sort of lead guy
Mm-hmm.
JD,
Yeah,
and what a great little guy he
yeah,
is, and
yes.
what he has to endure, his character does at
Mm,
least. I mean, it's
yeah.
so convincing.
Hmm.
Is another film that's just very hard. You sort of sit back in your seat like, oh gosh, this abuse really
Yeah.
feels real, and stuff like that.
Hmm. Right.
Um, Glenn Close as Mama.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was her until the movie was over. The first
Wow.
time I saw it, yeah, and
Yeah.
I went back and looked at the cast, and I'm like, no way. So I think
Yeah.
there was times where I sort of saw a glint in her eye where I'm like, she looks vaguely familiar, but I
Right.
never would have guessed it was Glenn Close.
Yeah, this
Tremendous.
was nominated for I just looked it up, best makeup and hairstyling,
Oh,
as
that
well as
yeah.
best supporting actress for Glenn Close. So those were the
Oh
two
yeah,
Oscar
yeah.
nominations it had.
Right, that makes sense. Yeah,
Hmm.
because she just disappeared in
Yeah,
this role, and
right.
just I I've 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 got some family, extended family, and people I've been around before where I've met people like this, and I'm not
Sure.
saying that like they're bad people. I'm just
Yeah,
saying that
right.
these are like normal. I mean, these are some
Yeah,
real people that we
sure.
feel like when we're
Right.
watching this movie. It's a very moving drama.
Yep.
As I said, Ron Howard. The editing of the film is very inspired. It interweaves various decades and not
Yeah.
in a typical fashion.
Right. Right.
Like sometimes it'll pop into like into the past and then pop forward again, like, and then
Yeah.
you might spend long it seemed very inspired, the editing
Yeah.
did in the movie,
Right.
which kept it moving quite a bit.
Hmm.
And the music is effective as well
Yeah.
in this movie. And I
Hmm.
just like it that you got this guy. I think it starts out in modern day where he's going to, what is it, Yale or Harvard or something, and he's
Yeah.
trying to rise above it.
Yeah.
And he's got sort of the stuff dragging him down. He gets a call,
Mm,
your mom's in the hospital and this kind of stuff, and that just,
yeah.
it just really feels ultra real,
Yeah.
those kind of things, because it's not always an easy course. Even if you can
Right.
get to Yale or Harvard, I bet most people do have things that are still a struggle, obviously.
Yeah.
And this really displays that well. So
Yeah.
it's a stark drama, and I feel it's really impactful and brilliantly acted, particularly by Amy Adams,
Yeah.
who just turns into this person
Hmm.
that is just really believable.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a really solid movie. Yeah, Ron with Ron Howard, I mean, you just really can't go wrong. And yeah, he definitely delivers here. It's very emotional, intense, engaging. It is loosely based on a true story as well. And so
Yeah, right,
it's
right.
yeah, so that gives it an extra kind of level. Um, but yeah, it's really well done. It got criticized. I'm seeing here it was actually nominated for the Golden Raspberry for worst director, worst screenplay, worst actress. So
What?
it's another one of those things that's like it just proves how objective film is, because some people see one thing and
Yeah,
some people see something else.
that's
So
absolute nonsense.
I agree. I agree. I don't know what they were thinking. Yeah,
Yeah,
really, really solid movie all around. Difficult to watch at times, but
yes,
also inspiring in many ways, too.
right,
So
right.
uh,
Yeah, and Ron Howard the master of true stories? I mean,
I
there's
think he
other good,
is.
you know.
We can crown him right now.
Goodness, yeah, I'm thinking, Beautiful Mind, Apollo. What was the one we watched earlier this year about
Oh yeah,
the
13
soccer team?
Lives.
Yeah,
Yeah.
13 Lives. I mean, I
Yeah.
know there's more too. So
Yeah.
yeah, he may be the master at it.
He might be. He might be. Yep. Yep. Good pick. Good pick for your number two. Cool. Well, moving on to my number two, I've got Enchanted at number two. So
Oh,
you had
okay,
this at number
okay.
three. Yeah, this is a movie I can watch anytime. It's one of those super fun movies. Just,
Yeah,
again, family film. Again, showcases her kind of multi-talented range of, she can sing, she can act, she can dance, she can, do all that stuff so well. And it's cool that, knowing that she, grew up in dance, that, she gets to do that now. Gets to kind of utilize
right.
all these elements of her kind of, skill set. So yeah, it's just really fun, lighthearted, kind of adventure movie. It's very, very funny. Always makes me laugh out loud. All these
Hmm.
things that they come up with to kind of
Absurdities.
bringing, yeah,
Yeah,
right, bringing her into this animated princess into the real world. It's just such a great idea, such an
yeah,
original
yeah.
idea that I think is a main
Mhm.
main reason why it works so well. So it's kind of spoofing the Disney princess thing,
Yeah,
in a
exactly,
way,
exactly. Yeah,
which is fun that Disney can kind of poke
right.
fun at themselves in that way. And you
Yes, that's
mentioned,
what's nice about it. Yeah,
right, right, exactly. And you mentioned Patrick Dempsey, he's great. James Marsden, who I'm a huge fan of, going back to X-Men with Cyclops, I'm a big fan of
yeah,
that guy.
yeah.
And so
Right.
Susan Sarandon does a great job as the villain as well. And
Hmm.
so, it's really well done on every level. The animation is great, the not
Uh-huh.
just the 2D kind of opening sequence, but all of
Right.
the, kind of creatures, that she
Yeah,
kind
that's
of
right. That's right.
kind of summons, all the New
Yeah,
York
right.
City, the rats from the sewers and all that.
Yeah,
It
that's
was tons
great.
of fun. So just a lot of good, inventive,
Mhm.
kind of elements to it that I thought were really cool. And the way she plays Giselle is so cool because, you know, she plays her very naive, but not
Yeah,
stupid. I feel like
sure,
there's a fine
sure.
line between those two. Um,
Endearing too. I mean,
and
that's
very endearing. Yes. Yeah.
yeah, that's
Character that
key.
you
That's
root
key.
for.
Yeah,
Definitely. Definitely. So, yeah, I really like it. It's all kind of played big, larger than life by her, but
right.
in the very kind of grounded, real world setting. So, yeah, I
Yeah.
just have a ton of fun with it every time I watch it. And, I think it's just tons of fun for the whole family. So, yeah, definitely check it out if you haven't on Disney Plus. You can skip the sequel. All right, now we're on to our number one picks for our favorite Amy Adams movies. Bert, what is your number one?
We got to talk about Arrival.
Yes, that's my number one.
Okay, you know, I said I don't know if I don't know if I told you this or wrote this
Yeah,
to you, but I said I got big problems with Arrival, and it is
right.
true.
Okay.
But this is the second time I've watched it, so I
Okay.
had to catch up and refresh.
Sure.
And I enjoyed it a lot more than I remembered,
Okay.
but I have issues with the ending. So,
Okay. Okay.
do you want to like if that's your number one? Then do you want to do like an overview if you had one for?
Yeah, well, this is a kind of a hard movie to talk about without spoilers, so we will be spoiling Arrival
Yeah,
if
we
you
have
have
to
not
make that
seen it.
clear.
Yeah,
Yeah,
if you haven't
full
seen it, definitely
spoilers.
go watch it. It's streaming now on
Right.
Paramount Plus. If you have Paramount Plus, go check it out and then come back and join us because this whole movie is about reveals, right? I mean, the whole movie is like
Yes.
there's
Right.
slowly things being revealed, and then the ending is
Yeah.
like this
Yeah.
crazy thing happens, and so yeah,
Right. Right.
really interesting story. So yeah, this whole movie is just so smart. I think the way it's written, the way it's directed, the way it's shot, the editing, everything about it is just like top notch, top level filmmaking. Denis Villeneuve directed it. He's a French Canadian director who's behind a lot of these big sci-fi blockbusters of the past few years. Blade Runner 2049, the new Dune film he just
Right.
directed. He's also done movies like Sicario and
Oh yeah.
just really, really great filmmaker. He's done a
Yeah.
wide range of different types of movies, and he always knocks it out of the park. He's just really solid movie maker. So um, he does such a great job with, like I said, these reveals, right? So the whole movie is, aliens come to Earth. Basically, it's one of these
Hmm.
things where all these
Right.
very unique design for these spaceships too, which I like. They all
Yeah.
arrive
Yeah.
at these, various locations across the globe and of course, the U.S.
Hmm.
government says we got to check this out, what's going on. And so they kind of recruit Amy Adams, who's a linguist.
Right.
They also recruit Jeremy Renner, who is he a physicist, I think, or a mathematician?
Something like that.
Something
Yeah.
like that. And so they recruit these two and, trying to figure out how to communicate with these
Hmm.
creatures. And
Right.
so, we have these extraterrestrials who are here. They can only communicate with these it's very hard to even explain. They're kind
Yeah.
of like
Yeah.
octopus looking creatures who kind of
Right.
float around in this area of a spaceship where they can communicate with these ink blots
Through glass.
and
Yeah.
right through this glass.
They're
And
like
so,
complex images
yeah, complex
or
images
letters
that
or
she's
words
trying
or
to
sentences. Yeah.
decipher what they mean. And so,
Right.
this could have been a very boring movie. I feel like it very easily could have been kind of a snooze fest, but they just find a way to make it so engaging, so
Yeah.
interesting.
Right.
The way it's again, the way it's shot, cut together, the visual effects, the music, I think has a lot to do
The
with it as
music's
well.
good.
So,
Yeah.
um, it's one of these things. Kind of what I wanted to talk about it, with her performances. They say a lot that acting is reacting and she does some of the best reacting here, I think,
Sure. Yeah.
ever,
Yeah.
which can be very difficult to pull off. And
Hmm.
so it all feels very natural, feels
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
realistic, and
Right.
I buy into all of it. So
Hmm.
that's an element of it that I think is a reason it works so well. And it's just very nuanced. It's not over the top in any way. It's all just very kind of
Yeah.
straightforward. That works really well. The kind of hook for me in the movie, the kind of next level of why it really works so well and why it's so powerful is because of this relationship she has with her daughter that we see at the
Mhm.
opening of the film. She has this daughter
Mhm.
who gets sick and ends up
Yeah.
dying. And so that's kind of, the kind of opening sequence of the film. And then we go into the kind of whole alien thing. And
Yeah.
you kind of forget about that even happened. And so
Right.
throughout the film, as they're kind of communicating, and you end up realizing that these aliens are actually um, essentially time travelers. It's a
Right.
very unique way of doing time
You don't
travel.
expect that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're not expecting that at all throughout the movie. There's no
Right.
hint of it at all. And so you end up realizing that this opening sequence actually hasn't happened yet.
Hmm.
And she gets foreknowledge that this will happen,
Hmm.
and she goes through with having a daughter anyway. And so, in that sense, the movie is just very, very much about the value of life, of human life,
Yeah.
and how precious it is. And
Right.
so that's why, for me, I have such a connection with it, a kind of emotional response with it. Now having children of my own. So it's just
Right.
one of those things that, the more I watch the movie, the more I like it because it is so layered, so
Hmm.
complex, and I will never forget the first time I watched it, just being floored by that ending. And yeah, really, really enjoy it. I really enjoy every aspect of this movie. It's one of my all-time favorite sci-fi films because of how, sci-fi to me is at its best when it's really about us here on Earth, right? It's not so much about that stuff
Sure.
out there. It's more about us and who we are, and
Yeah. Yeah.
that element of it just really comes through. And her performance really, really is good here, and the movie itself is great too. So yeah, it had to be number one.
Yeah. And I'll back up a little bit. It's got, this wonderfully kind of gloomy palettes.
It does, yeah.
And it's a bleak palette. So when color
Hmm.
presents, it really pops.
Right.
And it's a fantastic look, or like a interesting look at language, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
The way it's studied and evaluated. And
Yeah, I've never really
for
seen a
me,
movie do that.
right,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
It's
Uh,
tough to convey that visually, and they found a way to do that was really interesting.
definitely liked all that stuff. I really liked the anti-gravity stuff, the way that they
Yeah.
you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That's so interesting and appreciated. And they don't really even need to explain it per se,
Hmm. Right.
Um, I will say the pacing's for me slow.
Okay. Yeah.
Not too slow necessarily, but just
Right.
kind of slow. That was my problem
Yeah.
with Dune. I just felt like the entire
Right.
film Dune was too slow. I
Yeah.
just pretty much didn't like it at all. I didn't hate it,
Mm.
but didn't I
Hmm.
wouldn't say I liked it.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, you mentioned movies that are more about us, when there's science fiction. Like I think it is
Hmm.
using science fiction as a way to address humanity
Yes.
is what really makes it not just an interesting, sort of exciting, scary sci-fi alien movie. It
Right.
becomes more about it. If it really hits at your heart, it
Yes.
makes you
Yes.
think about complex themes,
Right.
and this film really does that.
Yeah.
That sort of big ending, I think it's like the last 20 minutes, I guess you could
Right.
say, that it covers. There's so
Hmm.
much that happens.
Right.
The film kind of gets sort of backed into this corner where you're like, well,
Yeah.
what's going to happen? Is this going to turn into like a war? Like what,
Yeah.
there's not even enough time. There's not enough screen time to even do anything like that. And
Sure.
thankfully it doesn't. We've got
Yeah.
Independence Day and 100 other films that,
Yeah. It wouldn't have fit with the tone of the movie up until that point anyway. It would have been like,
right,
what's going on now?
right.
Yeah.
And just, gosh, just as I sit here and think about it, I appreciate it more. Just think about the fact that it's at a certain point, the humans sabotage the aliens and try to blow up their ship.
Yeah.
And then the first time I watched it, I was thinking, oh, that's it. Here comes the war. We're going to
Right.
battle.
Right.
And they're so passive and
Yeah.
tolerant that
Yes.
they don't really even do anything to retaliate. And
Right.
that's what's interesting about this. Like,
Yes, it
what
is.
movie would we attack the aliens and they're
Right.
like, wait a minute, we were just talking about this thing. Let's
Yeah.
keep talking about
Wow.
that.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So things
Incredible.
like that are really rewarding when you're watching it.
Yep.
That last 20 minutes though, there's a lot in there.
There
I
is.
just I have problems with number one, they came here to give us this gift of language, but they never really tell us what good it will do us. That's
Right.
one problem I have with it.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
kind of like they tell us that there's this amazing thing. It's almost like the Matrix. If Neo takes the pill and then the movie ends there, it's like we're not going
Right.
to actually
Right.
get to see what good this will do us or what's going to
Sure.
happen. So
Right. Right.
and it leaving them wanting more is usually a good thing. So I mean that's
Yeah.
not necessarily a terrible thing, but I
Right.
was kind of hoping we would get a little bit more exposition on that. And I get that it's hard to do that because this is all just science fiction, so it's not like, I mean, almost the more you get into that, the harder it is gonna be to defend it,
It is.
right?
I agree. And I think the way they do it is probably the best way you can do it because,
Yeah,
again, it's
yeah,
from Amy Adams' perspective.
right,
So we do see how it affects her. And I
right,
think
right.
for me, that's if since they gave us at least that, that
Mhm.
is why it's satisfying as an ending.
Gotcha.
If they had
Yeah,
gone more into the government side and like the planet and
yeah.
how it's going to affect everybody, yeah, I think that would have been too much. But
It's a different movie then. Yeah,
yeah, right. It becomes a little
yeah,
bit of a different movie, a much bigger movie.
right. And then the other I guess you could say problem is that um the whole thing of that general that Amy Adams character has to call him, and he gives her the information, but then the aliens let her, like the aliens, like through time travel or whatever, basically save her planet. But
Yeah,
why didn't they do that on day one? That's what I don't get. Like if they're
right.
going to communicate telepathically with her, why and I know why. It's because if you do it at the end of the movie and there's a time crunch, it's more intense.
Right.
But globally, just thinking about it, it doesn't really make sense that they wouldn't just give her that information right off the bat so that she's
Right.
got plenty of time to make that phone call.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I guess it makes sense. Maybe they were trying to test her to see if we were worthy of the information. That could be an element of it. Like, we're here on this planet. We want to give you guys a chance, but we need to
Mhm.
figure out if it's even if you're worthy of the information we're gonna willing to give you.
Maybe.
Maybe it was
Yeah.
that kind of an idea. I don't know. That's just off the
Right.
top of my head. I haven't thought about that much, but that's an interesting question.
Yeah, and then it also leads to this situation where she is given the knowledge that she's going to have a child with Jeremy Renner's character,
Yes.
and then the child will end up with this illness
Right.
from which the child won't recover.
Right.
And then you start thinking, well, goodness, what if I had that information? Would I then still marry Jeremy Renner? And of course I would, because he's famous and rich.
Right.
That goes without saying. But would I have a child with him? So these
Yeah.
are pretty heavy things that
Yeah.
that I start thinking about when I'm watching this, and I'm
Right.
like, whoa, yeah, like
Yeah.
that's getting pretty deep there.
Yeah. It is.
Yeah, and so I'm left with this film that is very, very good, but I'm still trying to work out those couple things, because um, I'll tell you this much: it went from essentially maybe a 1.5, 2-star film to at least 4 for
Oh
me
wow.
on second
Great.
viewing here. So
Great.
so yeah. So I've really kind of come around from the first time I
Yeah.
said I got a big problem with this movie,
Sure.
because I'm like, oh, this is actually really good. It's really, really good
Yeah.
in numerous ways.
Right.
And I haven't really even mentioned much about Amy Adams. She
Sure.
carries the film. I mean, Jeremy
Yeah.
Renner is hardly in this thing,
Right. Right. Exactly. Yep.
and he's not
Yep.
given much to do. This is
Hmm.
this is Amy Adams, film, and
Yep.
which is great to see that, and she does carry it well. It's basically flawless acting. So I mean,
Yeah. I
between
agree.
that and the fact that the film's that good is
Yeah.
why I put it at number one.
Yeah. I agree. I'm right there with you. Yep. Yep. A perfect performance. Again, one of my favorite sci-fi movies ever. So, yeah, it was always going to be number one, and I'm glad it's your number one as well. That's cool.
Yeah, I ended up getting there, although it is close to my 2 and 3. So
Sure, sure, sure. I hear you. All right, folks. Well, that will do it for our episode 29 of the Real World Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us for this Amy Adams episode. We had fun rewatching a lot of her movies. Let us know your top 5 Amy Adams movies in the comments below. Be sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell so you get notifications of all our videos here at the Real World. All kinds of new videos are coming your way soon. Reviews for shows and movies and all kinds of other things, my Blu-ray collection. be doing another episode of the Real Collection coming up soon as well. So be on the lookout for that. Be sure you follow us on our social medias. That's in the description below as well. Bert and I are both on Letterboxd, so you can give us a follow over there if you're on Letterboxd. Be sure you come back next week for our Christmas extravaganza. It's going to be a lot of fun. Thanks again, Bert, for joining me.
Of course. Yep.
All right, everybody. Thanks again, and hope you enjoyed the episode. We will see you next time right here on The Real World.